Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is In Case You Missed It from Kates-Boylston for the week ending Friday, June 21st, 2024. Just a little note for our YouTube viewers. We do not have video this week. I was on the road. I couldn't make the video work, but I do have the audio, and we have some cool stories. Let's get into it. First up, Park Lawn has set the date for its special meeting of its shareholders to determine whether or not they'll accept the offer from Viridian Acquisition, a company comprised of Homesteaders Life Company and Birch Hill Equity Partners Management Incorporated. Their plan is to acquire the company for $26.50 per share, and the special meeting will be held on July 29th, 2024. Park Lawn will be sending out more information to its shareholders in its shareholder circular, which should be out soon. It may be out by the time you're listening to this, as this was reported early in this week. Park Lawn also has postponed its annual shareholders meeting because they may not be shareholders anymore, depending upon how the vote goes. The shareholder meeting was scheduled for earlier this week. I've got a story that I'll be putting out early next week, probably Monday or Tuesday, for Funeral Service Insider with coverage of this story. We've spoken with Steve Schaefer and Brad Green of Homesteaders and Park Lawn, respectively. We also have some insight from Chris Kruger of the Foresight Companies, who brokered the deal. Chris was actually at our funeral service business plan meeting in early June, the day that the deal closed, and he has some stuff to share with us. And again, you can check that on Funeral Service Insider at Kates-Boylston.com. An urn containing cremated remains was found in the St. Clair River near Sarnia, near Lambton County, Ontario, Canada. The urn was found in the river, and it had a funeral home name on the bottom of it, so they reached out to the funeral home, and they said there may be an identifying mark in it. The police have not found the identifying mark yet. Belton Straup Funeral Home in Fairborn, Ohio, was the originator of the urn, and the funeral director in charge there, or the funeral director who spoke for the funeral home there, Tyler Sylvester, said that it may contain an identifying coin and a bag, unless the cremated remains were split up, in which case it may be impossible to identify when and where those remains came from. Well, where is the funeral home, but when they were handed over to the family might be hard to tell. There is a photo of the urn on the website that did the reporting, and we will have a link to that on the show notes. It was reported by lfpress.com. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro has signed into legislation a measure that would lower the cremation temperature from 800 degrees to 1600 degrees for crematories installed after 1989. The funeral homes are very excited about this measure because it will, hopefully the plan is for it to reduce their energy costs. There are about 200 facilities across Pennsylvania that will be affected by this legislation. But what was really interesting in the reporting, and again, links in the show notes, as always, is that they are speaking more in the consumer media about how, since cremation is up, people aren't having services. That is, of course, as you know, not true, but getting that message out, I think, is important, especially if the press calls you. It's incumbent upon you to say, even though people are getting cremated more and buried less, that has nothing to do with whether or not they want to have funerals. The thrust of the article is people aren't having funerals anymore, and that's why cremation is up. And that's a message that I think the funeral service, as well as individual funeral directors, would do well to flip on its head so that there's less misunderstanding about cremation means no funeral. That has been beaten into the consumers' heads for so long that it's going to take a while to undo that, but it's really a mission worth undertaking. John C. Greco of Greco Hurtnick Funeral Home in Charleston has been elected the new president of the West Virginia Funeral Directors and Crematory Operators Association during its 130th annual convention at Oglebay Resort in Wheeling, West Virginia. Greco is the first person from Weirton and Hancock County to hold this position, and he was installed by Chris Christensen, who is the secretary of the NFDA Board of Directors. In his inaugural address, Greco underscored the significance of member engagement, urging active participation in committees and events. And here's the quote from him. I am honored to lead the West Virginia Funeral Directors and Crematory Operators Association. My objective is to support our members, ensuring they receive the necessary resources and guidance to deliver exceptional service to their communities. I encourage all members to join us in making this positive impact, and that is as reported by the Wiridian Daily Times. And finally, the Kates-Boylston annual planning meeting in Rhode Island has come to an end. I know that because I'm recording at the end of the week-long session. It was a really productive meeting, and we have so much cool stuff coming up for you guys in the coming year. We're going to do more with the podcast. We're going to probably do a little bit more with video, even though, as I mentioned at the beginning, we had to do away with me being on here on the video because of camera issues. The report on the Kates-Boylston compensation survey will be out in the coming weeks, and we worked really, really hard on this, and it's got tons of fantastic information in it and plenty of insight. And I'm also very excited for you to read it because I'm already preparing the one for next year. So if you download it, please download it when it's available. Keep your eye on our social media. I will mention it in next week's FSI, the podcast, where you can find all of the compensation survey data and when you can download it. And what I'd like to hear from you guys is what questions would you like to see answered in this coming year? As you all know, starting in January, the minimum wage for salaried workers will go up by about $3,500. And we're going to take a look at old data and new data and see what kind of effect that has. So I'd absolutely love to hear from you if you've decided to give people raises or if you've decided to watch your hours more closely and how you made that decision. We will be reporting on that for the rest of this year on and off, and of course early next year as it takes place. If you have any other questions that are unanswered when you look at the compensation report, let me know and I will add the questions. We are writing that, and our hope is to release that for your participation. The survey for 2025 we will release at the end of 2024, probably in early November, for you to respond to. That will do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. In case you missed it, is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo. Thank you so much for listening. I would love it if you subscribed. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the subscribe button. And if you're listening on a podcast, please follow us on whatever podcast application you're listening to us on this now. And that will do it for this week. And we will check in with you next time on In Case You Missed It.